Welcome to Books and Booze, a bookish and wine and juice podcast. Whether you're a fan of books, wine, or true crime, this is the place for you. Pour yourself a glass of whatever you enjoy and enjoy the show. Cheers! Hey guys, how are you? It's Jade, your host. I don't know if you even remember me anymore. It's been a while. I am saying hello to you from Spain, which usually is quite sunny, but lately it is pouring down with rain. So hello from rainy Spain. I can finally get this recording in because I am now living on a yacht. We all live on top of each other as a crew, so there's not much time or space for me to actually, film my YouTube videos or record podcast episodes. But both the boys have just realised it's Friday and they're out of beer, so I finally have a few minutes to myself while I'm at the shops. So I thought I would do a little bit of a catch-up episode as quick as I can before they get back. I've been in Spain now for just over a month, and it's different, This is the first time in my life I am fully alone, and it's new. It's very unfamiliar territory for me, but it's a great learning process. I am learning to become independent and just grow, get self-respect, self-love, self-worth, and just create a life for myself without relying on anyone else. And it's a very uplifting and empowering feeling. God, I sound so bloody philosophical without wine. It's not wine o'clock yet, so unfortunately this is a sober recording on Books and Booze. But when the beer comes, I have discovered not most beers, but a little bit of a taste for, get this, Corona, and also some Spanish beer called Mahon or something, the green can, not the red one. So I'll be having a beer with them when they get back from the shops, which they shouldn't technically be doing because we're actually not allowed off the boat. We're in quarantine, and as of today, Spain has just upped its quarantine or extended it until the 20th of April, so we're stuck for a really long time here. And I've heard as well that the peak of the coronavirus is actually only going to hit us in May or June, which is terrifying because that's, just the start of the yacht season. So I have no idea what's going to happen there. And they're saying that it could only potentially start to cool off in September, which is a month before my contract ends. So it's a bit stressful. I have no idea what's happening with this job at the moment, but we're keeping ourselves busy. We spent a month polishing and waxing the boat in a shipyard, and that was tough work. I have muscles where I didn't even know I had muscles. I've been doing loads of workouts. On the boats you get these fenders. My friend Dave didn't know what a fender is until I told him. So a fender is basically, in layman's terms, the balloon on the side of the boat that protects it from getting smacked into the dock, the concrete that the boat runs along when you're in port. So on our boat, because it's quite big, we have these fenders that are bigger than me, and I've been having to do deadlifts with them and run around the boat with all the bow lines, whatever you call them. And yeah, I am just getting really fit, healthy, brown, healthy mind, body, soul. Things have been going really well. The whole coronavirus thing is pretty scary. I mean, South Africa has now closed its borders, so you can't get in, which is a bit scary for me, considering that's where I am from, kind of, besides being also from England. I'm a bit of a mongrel. I also believe that because I'm in Spain, which is one of the most high-risk areas to be in, if I was to head over to England or something, they would just shove me or chuck me straight into quarantine because they don't want me to go and infect people. So I'm a bit screwed in Spain, to be fair. But I did have a really good time before Corona broke out and ruined everything for everyone. I had a really good night with my friend Dave, who came to visit, and we went out, got really hopelessly trolleyed on wine, destroyed a hotel room. We got tattoos. I got 2 new tattoos to add to my collection. I got C'est la vie on my right arm, and I got a wildflower behind my ear on my left ear, and the wildflower symbolises, there's a quote that goes, "Like a wildflower, grow in places people never thought possible." And I believe that that's what this experience in Spain is for me. I have never been alone before, and I'm starting to grow and learn things about myself and become a stronger person. So that's what that tattoo means, and the c'est la vie is just like, oh well, such is life, because I've always taken life way too seriously and thought far too much about the future, whereas now I'm just going to let it roll. Take everything with a pinch of salt and have some bloody fun.
Do you have a true crime obsession like me? Have you ever listened to true crime podcasts and wondered why there is no voice for South African victims? Well, that voice is here. True Crime South Africa covers solved and unsolved South African true crime cases. Each episode is a deep dive, not only into the mechanics of the case, but more importantly, into the victim's story and who they were as human beings. True Crime South Africa is available on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Our content is waiting to be discovered by you.
But most of you that are subscribed to Books and Booze are more interested in what I have to say about actual books. So let me tell you about 2020 so far and what I've been reading, because I haven't updated you since the beginning of February, I think. I do have to say 2020 is definitely not only the year of being out of my comfort zone in life, but also being outside of my comfort zone reading-wise. I've hardly read any thrillers this year so far. The majority of the books I've read are either self-help, which has actually been really good for me to get into different mindsets, change my thought pattern and process, and just heal myself. The other genre, very strangely, is romance. I've been really enjoying my romance lately, which is baffling for all of us, believe me, because I am not a romance person unless we're talking about, my favourite TV shows like The Bachelor, Bachelorette, Love is Blind, and side note, if you guys have watched Love is Blind on Netflix, I have a very, very good podcast recommendation for you. They're two guys called Chris and Dave. They host the podcast called Love Island Cast. I'll leave a link to their podcast in the description box for this episode, so go have a look, because they're a great podcast and they're far more consistent than I am. Anyway, back to the books. I am not going to go into every single book I've read this year so far, because I've read 21 at this stage, but one romance book that I actually absolutely loved was After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I'm not sure if you remember when Kiara used to co-host Books and Booze with me. She always tried to recommend Taylor Jenkins Reid to me, and I always used to try and recommend Colleen Hoover to her. Well, she took my advice finally, and she's ended up absolutely loving Colleen Hoover. So I thought, okay, I'll give Taylor Jenkins Reid a go, and I read After I Do. My golly gosh, I started reading it right after my breakup with Duran, and it couldn't have come at a better time in my life, to be honest. I just connected with this story so much. I gave it a 5-star review on Goodreads. I honestly felt like this book was written for me. The premise is that this book is about a couple called Lauren and Ryan, a married couple who need to take a break from each other. So they agreed to this year apart. And when I read this, like I said, me and Duran, in the beginning, it was just supposed to be a break, and then it did turn into a full-on breakup. But that's a story for another time. So this book allowed me to relate so much to Lauren and her struggles through finding her feet without her husband there to support her. I just found that the whole premise of this book just spoke straight to my soul. It was so realistic, and at times it was really hard to swallow. Through the character's heartbreak, my own heart broke with hers. And I ended up gaining perspective of my life and circumstances that I was going through with the character's life and circumstances in the book. So After I Do follows Lauren as she learns how to be alone, which is pretty much exactly what I'm going through right now. She learned how to do things for herself and become independent, which is what I'm doing at the moment. And it just helped me so much, because I'm going through so many of the same aches and pains. Taylor Jenkins Reid is a great writer and has such a warm, fresh way of telling a story that feels so genuine. There's also a TV show on Netflix called Virgin River, which I got recommended when I was looking for something similar to Heart of Dixie to watch. And I realised then that it was actually a book series. So I decided to download the first book on Audible and ended up absolutely loving it, which was a massive surprise to me. I wasn't expecting that at all. You know, like I said, romance is not my normal thing, but this book was just delightful. It's written by a woman called Robyn Carr. And again, I gave it a 5-star review on Goodreads. What the hell is happening to me? So in Virgin River, our protagonist is Mel Monroe. She's this nurse practitioner looking for a fresh start in life. She stumbles upon this quaint and beautiful town of Virgin River, and she finds this gorgeous looking cabin on the internet and accepts this job there. But when she arrives, the town is a far cry from what she expected. The cabin's totally run down, and her new boss is this grumpy old sod that's hell-bent on making her life hell. So Mel's just about to turn right back around, but she winds up at this bar where she meets this ruggedly handsome dude called Jack. But it's still not quite enough to make her want to stay. So the next day, she's adamant that she's going to be leaving until she discovers this newborn baby abandoned on the doctor's doorstep. And that's how Virgin River all starts. I really loved how much research has been done throughout Virgin River, the book. Carr's writing is... you can tell how much research is put into it. It's not only with the medical field, but also with regards to military life and post-traumatic stress. And something that really surprised me with the book is how steamy some of the scenes were. I mean, it wasn't quite 50 Shades of Grey, but there were some pretty saucy sex scenes in there to spice the book up. I found the book really realistic, funny, sweet, cozy. Carr's writing flows really beautifully and organically, and I really enjoyed it. I've already downloaded book 2 and I can't wait to start it. Yep, romance and contemporary are not my thing normally, but I think something in me might be changing. As for self-help books, I've read quite a couple of those this year too. One is by an author called Schuster, and it's called Buy Yourself the Fucking Lilies. I knew I had to read this book when I saw the title. It was just very appealing to me. The full title is Buy Yourself the Fucking Lilies and Other Rituals to Fix Your Life from Someone Who's Been There. This book I gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I didn't know anything about Tara Schuster when I started reading this book, and like I said, it's just that the title really appealed to me. For the most part, I find self-help books quite arrogant and egotistical, but Schuster laid the cards out on the table while finding a way to seem really friendly and genuine about what she was trying to say. It's a very conversational book and very easy to read, but there were so many parts of the book that had me breaking down in tears. But in a good way. I felt understood. There is a lot of emotion in Buy Yourself the Fucking Lilies. It actually ended up really overwhelming me, but not in a bad way. I mean, I read it at the perfect stage in my life because I was able to take on board everything that Schuster was saying. It opened my mind up and made me see things in a new light. It's a book that helps you rewire your brain and your way of thinking, and it shows you a way to get rid of all that god-awful negative voices inside your head that bring you down and cause self-doubt. And it teaches you how to reparent yourself, basically. She offers practical advice and solid methods to fixing your life and creating the life that you truly want and deserve. I mean, will my life suddenly become blooming with lilies after buying this book? No, it's a work in progress. These things don't happen overnight, but I most certainly will be implementing many of her methods into my day. Overall, I found this book incredibly helpful, motivational, and inspiring. It was refreshing, fun, deep, honest, and very well executed. One thing I must say about this book, though, is I do think it's targeted more towards millennials. The way it's written, I don't feel like it would go down terribly well with the Gen X of the world unless they're more open-minded. That said, I highly recommend this book to anyone who is at a place in their life where things need to change and you're just a bit unsure about how to go about it. Yeah, like I said, I haven't really been reading many thrillers this year, to be honest. I just finished Your Truth or Mine by Trisha Sakhlecha. which is a book that was given to me by Pan Macmillan South Africa. Thank you very much to them. I ended up giving Your Truth or Mine a 4 out of 5 stars. And just so you know, all the books I speak about will be in the description box. So if you want a list of everything I've spoken about in this episode, you can find it there. Your Truth or Mine took me a lot longer to read than I thought, because, to be honest, I was savouring every page. With the move to Europe and living in this tiny little cabin on a boat, I couldn't exactly pack loads of books, so Your Truth or Mine was the only book that I had packed. I was scared to finish it and not have anything else to keep me going. But then I received this really lovely gift of the first book in the Game of Thrones series by George R.R. Martin. Again, not my normal type of read whatsoever. High fantasy is not my thing, but I did love the Game of Thrones TV show, so I was like, A Game of Thrones is a book that has been on my TBR pile for an extremely long time, and I have definitely been wanting to read it. But anyway, I'll talk about A Game of Thrones in a second. Back to Your Truth or Mine and the brief review of it for you. As soon as I did get A Game of Thrones, I flew through the second half of Your Truth or Mine. I did feel that the first half of this book was a big slow burn, and when people were asking me what I thought of it, I actually quite frankly told them that I was bored with it. But whatever I told you before, I take it back. While Your Truth or Mine is not without its problems, holy crap, the second half was redeeming. This book is about a seemingly happily married couple, Mia and Roy Kapoor. Everything's going pretty great in their lives until one day there's a knock on the door and 2 detectives are asking Roy questions about this young woman's disappearance. It's a story of love and deceit, lies, betrayal, trauma. That's all I'm going to say about this one with regards to the premise. I love a good domestic thriller. It's one of my favourite genres, always has been. And Your Truth or Mine was a twisted psychological maze. Some parts, one part in particular, were pretty gruesome, and I actually battled to read through it. So I do have to say with this one, if you're going to pick it up upon my recommendation, there is a big trigger warning for animal cruelty. The book itself is chilling. It's a lot darker than I expected, and it's the kind of book that made me want to stay up until I finished the very last page. I was not expecting to like this book as much as I did, because of the first half not really being that captivating, but I do urge you to persevere because, like I said, as soon as I got Game of Thrones and I was able to fly through the book a bit faster, I just could not put it down. I loved the Indian culture peppered throughout the pages. On a whole, the characters were so fleshed out. They each had their own intricate side stories, which made it really easy to get to know them on a deeper level. And it kind of made the book seem eerily real. The plot itself was great, and the subplots created an entire world. It was very cleverly constructed, I must say. Mia, as one of our protagonists, was exceptionally annoying. She's the typical unreliable narrator. She's got voices in her head, major psychological damage. She jumps to these conclusions so quickly, and it just really irked me to my core. Roy, as the other main character, I wanted to rip him from the pages and slap him myself. Men like that should be castrated. Just go dump him in the pages of George R.R. Martin's books for all I care. Then you get the overall twist at the end. I figured it out probably a page or 2 before it all unravelled, and perhaps one too many clues were sprinkled in for my liking, so I didn't get that massive shock factor. But, I read tons of thrillers. I tend to figure things out pretty easily, so maybe for you, if you're newer to the genre, you may be very shocked by this ending. It was good, very good. Perhaps a little bit too repetitive here and there, and there were a few storylines that I felt were forgotten, or unfinished, should we say. But overall, for a debut novel, this book is fabulous, and I can't wait to read more by this author. Right, now going on to the book I'm currently reading, A Game of Thrones. I am so surprised by how much I'm enjoying this book. Obviously I loved the show. I didn't get to finish the show, and now I'm thinking I kind of want to read all the books before I do finish the show. Because it's high fantasy, I just thought I would not click with the book whatsoever. Kind of like horror, I love horror movies, but I just don't seem to connect with horror books. But holy shit, A Game of Thrones is so easy to read. It flows so well. The writing's fabulous. Every chapter is told from a different character, and I'm loving it so much. I'm already like 150 pages in. My favourite chapters are obviously Khaleesi's chapters, Daenerys Targaryen. I have heard that the book is very similar to the TV show. There's not many differences, which is often the case, but apparently it does a very good job of being very true to the book, the TV show, which is what I watched first. So yeah, I'm really surprised with this one. I'm absolutely loving it, and I'll definitely be carrying on with this series. Maybe not one after the other, because they are chunky beasts of books. I do have a few thriller books lined up, but I don't get much time to listen to audiobooks at the moment, which is how I've got thriller books lined up at the moment. I've got You Are Not Alone by Sarah Pekkanen and Greer Hendricks. I've got The Recovery of Rose Gold by Stephanie Roble. Long Bright River by Liz Moore. Growing Things and Other Stories by Paul Tremblay. Yeah, I've got a couple. In the Woods by Tana French. So I've got things to keep me going. But like I said, we're not allowed headphones on deck on the boat, so it's basically just listening to music while we work. But I'll get to them as soon when I have time, you know. After work, I pretty much am so exhausted. I shower the dirt from the day away, shove on some pajamas, and either just watch half an episode of The Bachelorette New Zealand before passing out, or yeah, I've got to catch up on The Bachelor South Africa, actually. I'm like 3 episodes behind now, and I think it's going to be quite a funny one to keep watching because I'm supposed to be on the show. I'm supposed to be dating this bachelor, but obviously I gave that up when I met Duran, and yeah, interesting the way things work in life, isn't it? But yeah, it is very interesting watching the show, thinking I am supposed to be there. I've also got news that Claire Crawley is the new Bachelorette in America, which is really awesome. She's been in the environment of the Bachelor environment for a very long time, and she is so deserving of love. I can't wait to see her season, although I have heard that because of this bloody coronavirus, it will be delayed a fair bit. Movie-wise, I did watch a great movie, and again, I don't know what is happening to me, guys, but I'm not a cartoon person at all, but I watched The Secret Lives of Pets for the first time on Netflix, and it was so much fun. I laughed my socks off. If you haven't seen it, and you have a dog or a cat or a bird or a bloody hamster, watch this. It is so fun. Tonight, as it's a Friday evening, I believe that me and the boys are going to be watching Avengers Endgame and having pizza, because, you know, got to be unhealthy some of the time, and hopefully crack open a bottle of wine. My wine consumption has gone down dramatically since I've been here. It's been a lot more healthy than is normal for me. Loads of salads, workouts, tea. Life has changed. But I'm growing and maturing and becoming a better me. I hope you're all well. If you are still subscribed to my podcast after so long, thank you for sticking around, and I'd love to hear from you. I've got my Twitter where you can leave me, a tweet or a message. Get in touch. It's at BooksBoozPod. It's the same on Instagram as well, BooksBoozPod. Say hello. I'd love to hear from you all, and I'll hopefully have some time to talk to you again soon. Have a groovy day, everyone. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Books and Booze. You can find us on Instagram under Books Booze Podcast, or alternatively, boho_bookworm. We're also on Twitter under Books Booze Pod. We're also on Patreon if you would like to support us by donating as little as $1 a month. If you're looking for a free way to support us, please leave us a 5-star review. As always, it's been a pleasure. Happy reading and drink responsibly.